So I think one of the problems is everyone has an idea or conceptualization about how people act, and generally it's based on a model of themselves. The problem is that not everyone is a carbon copy of you or thinks, acts, and behaves in the same way. So sometimes applying your own model of your own behavior to other people doesn't work very well. But there definitely is an element of confirmation bias, is people tend to have an idea about how to manage, how to think, how other people should be managed, but it doesn't always match. So that's why you really need to go to the scientific research, because there's a huge amount of scientific and psychological research on people's personalities or their motivation or their behavior, and general scientific models that are really useful. And sometimes people's kind of individual theories about why people do things, or that pseudoscientific idea, don't really match reality. And there's also a range of tests and psychometrics and measures that people use, some of which are very good and some of which are completely pseudoscientific. A good example of that is Myers-Briggs personality test. So it's been around for a long time. It's very popular. A lot of people understand kind of what the different dimensions mean, but there's not a lot of scientific research behind it. And there's really not a lot of research showing that it predicts anything. So Myers-Briggs comes with a kind of familiar language, people understand it, some coaches and mentors are used to using it, they might have used it for a long time, but there's not a lot of evidence it's a really good descriptor of people. Now, there is a huge amount of research on personality science, and so there's the Big Five model of personality traits that looks at traits and behaviors, thoughts and emotions along 5 distinct traits. There's decades of research behind it. There's really good evidence and information that shows that it's related to certain types of performance, but it may be used in different settings, different circumstances, and that's a more kind of academic, research-based measure. So it's usually used in different fields. Okay, and the other reason is sometimes clients or customers come in with a model that they want you to test in mind, right? So sometimes it comes from a manager, sometimes it comes from a client, and people want you to use a certain pseudoscientific measure. So they've got an idea about how things should be measured, and they've got a project ready to go, and they might ask a consultant or someone who's working for them to use that specific model. So sometimes it comes from somewhere else, someone has a requirement. I would say it's usually the responsibility of a consultant or a psychometrician or a psychologist to say, well, that's not a very accurate model. But sometimes people just go along with what the other person's requesting.